ladies and gentlemen, we are back here for yet another episode of Night Brothers Commentary. I think it's been a while since we've had the gang here, all of us on board. It just so happened that our schedules worked out. Happy to be back in the saddle. Matt just celebrated his 30th birthday here this week, so happy birthday to Matt. We can think of this episode as maybe a birthday present to him, but we wanted to come in. We're going to pick up a topic here in pop culture, something that did we all go to the movie together?
Yes. We did. Yep.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago went to the Avatar, the new Avatar film, and just kind of wanted to go through our thoughts, a little recap. Matt, I'll kick it over to you to kind of get the conversation going.
All right. So, I mean, essentially the movie kind of starts off with basically a monologue, if you will. It basically just kind of describes like what was happening with Jake and his family, now new family essentially, for about 15 years until the humans come back. And when they come back with a vengeance.
They really do, and they've got some new, technology, some new things that they've been sort of cooking up in the works in terms of how they are going to address the local problem, if you will, which is obviously Jake, his family, his people. So it was kind of interesting to see the approach that they took in terms of, basically creating their avatar, so to speak.
Yeah, so essentially the new avatars, or the Recoms, as they're actually called, they're essentially basically just avatar bodies with the memories of the individuals prior to their death, basically just implanted in them. So that's kind of how they bring Quaritch back. And honestly, I felt like Quaritch was a little too, I guess, single-minded in this movie. Like you could argue he was kind of like that in the first movie too, but in this movie, he's just dead set on revenge at this point. So,
yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious that, and I don't want to get us too sidetracked, but I couldn't, at the beginning of the movie, I couldn't help but acknowledge or see some of the parallels to what's going on in the real world. Obviously, in terms of, you just said it, how they had sort of downloaded their memories and then uploaded it into the avatar. And some of the stuff that's going on with Elon Musk's Neuralink and you can laugh all you want, but they're doing human trials this year, so it's just interesting. I mean, I don't think it's too far-fetched at this point to believe that somebody's conscience and memories will at some point be digitized and potentially uploaded in a future
robot or something.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? So
Terminator.
I guess, I mean, Matt, just to kind of get the conversation flowing, what were your thoughts on the overall film? I mean, obviously, we can't recap the entire thing here.
That's true.
Because
it would take forever.
It's too long. So
the way I see it, this movie, I mean, it basically was like a combination of like the first movie, Moby Dick, The Iron Giant, and Titanic, as well as like maybe some like Vietnam War movies where basically, and the reason why I bring that up is because like the scenes where Quaritch basically just lays to waste like all these like Na'vi villages. It's very much like, I don't know, I guess the U.S. and Vietnam just using napalm and just obliterating the forest. I mean, I don't know, I just got that kind of vibe from it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think there were a lot of different themes that were coming together. Unfortunately, and part of the reason why I got maybe a little frustrated with the film is that the thing that it reminded me the most of was the first Avatar.
Movie. Yeah. I'll give you that.
I mean, it was just I guess my biggest criticism was that it was such a similar flow and storyline, character arc. I mean, we didn't. While some of the characters maybe looked different, I didn't feel like we were really. It was just 2.0. It was Avatar 2.0.
Yeah, really, it was. They were still hunting down some random thing that was worth trillions of dollars. That was the humans' motivation. So that was what they were doing. You think after 10 years, James Cameron could write a different story twice. To give you a little background, I know a lot of people excited for the Avatar films. I'm a resident hater now. I am not a fan. Was not looking forward to how long this movie took to come out.
Yeah.
I had some personal quarrels. If you see me on the MCU ones, I'm a big fan. I didn't like that the original Avatar was re-released to beat the next Avatar movie and the highest-grossing films. I knew that movie would never stand long term, but
Yeah.
there's a couple things that Cameron has done with this movie that I did not get very excited for and found myself very bored throughout the movie.
Fair enough.
It was, I mean, to put it bluntly, it was too long.
Yes.
There was not enough for the amount of runtime and screen time that this movie took, which was about 3 hours. I don't know what the official
Like 3:10 or something.
runtime was.
Yeah, it
but,
was like 3 hours and 10 minutes.
But the story that was told could have been accomplished easily in 2/3 of that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
If not less. And it almost felt like it was, what's the right word? It was almost a selfish production in the sense that it was more about their grandiose filmmaking and CGI, and they made it more about what they wanted to show off rather than really telling a world-class story, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of have to agree with that. Because, like I said, I mean, if you compare the first movie, I mean, you could literally compare the first movie to like Dancing with Wolves, Pocahontas.
Yep.
I mean, and this movie was really no different. Honestly, it was just.
It was underwater.
I mean, literally.
I mean,
Yeah, figuratively and literally.
So, kind of what happens, to give a little bit too, is the first 45 minutes really is just catching you up on what's happened over the last 15 years on, what's the name of the planet?
Pandora.
Pandora. And then the next like hour and a half is the way of the water. You learn about the water tribe, what they're doing, how their lives are different than they were calling them
The sky people.
Yeah. And then the last hour is kind of just truly just kind of a battle scene, really. Is what takes place. And everyone that I've talked to has all agreed that it's too long. That between those kind of 3 sections, most people I've talked to like the ending. I didn't care for it particularly, but they all kind of agreed that the expedition, the 45-minute expedition dump in the beginning was a little long. And the middle
that
just
should have been
kind of
trimmed
was-
down a lot, for sure.
And they were trying to introduce a lot of characters, so I got it because there were a lot of kids. But the truth is, halfway through the movie, I could barely identify one kid from the other. So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up because that made it hard to follow. There were way too many characters that you were trying to introduce, develop a storyline, you know, and then you try and land their arc somewhere that was meaningful. I mean, I think of the character that probably frustrated me the most. You know,
Spider
was Spider. Yeah, and I was trying to come up with a way with that without being too negative, but you know that ending, the ending of the film, and spoiler alert here, you know, his all of a sudden change of heart or whatever, he has a conscience now about, you know, this is his dad or his whatever. It felt so inauthentic. I mean, it just wasn't. And of course they had to do something to backdoor into, you know, the next film.
movies,
You know, but way too many characters, way too hard to follow. There were things that really were kind of left unsaid, and I'm going to even forget her name now. The gal who obviously had a greater connection. I would call Kiri. I was going to say Kira.
I mean,
Kiri.
she's basically Navi Space Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, she was kind of playing the role for somebody who's not super involved in this world, in Jane Cameron world, the Avatar world. She was almost like the hippie child, you know, that was very in tune with the nature, and even every character's in tune with the nature in this movie, but to a higher level.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what all that was about. I mean,
the way I see it, that was definitely like, they're setting up something big with the sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it's about, because you basically, what I came out of it with this movie is she's basically space. She's Navi Jesus. Literally, like Grace is basically the Virgin Mary, and Ayla is essentially the quote unquote dad.
Yeah.
And so what I'm thinking is she's basically like Ayla in Navi form.
There's
Okay.
some sort of AWA thing coming down the line.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
some sort of
There's no doubt
yeah.
that's something big. Because one thing I do think that this movie did a much better job on than the first one is like when they actually like I don't know like connect into like the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually like go inside the tree this time instead of just like because when you like I don't know like in the first movie where basically Jake and Neytiri are kind of like at the tree of voices, you know, the tree that basically kind of gets mowed down like literally like 5 minutes later. I mean, you kind of hear those voices, but you don't necessarily see what's going on.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess I just like this. I guess I kind of like the.
We all understand what you're trying to say.
It's like a dream sequence. It's basically like a dream
Yeah.
sequence, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know that I actually really enjoyed because now we actually kind of get to see how the tree works, like how this network works in more detail.
You're tapping into the tree's conscience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and I like that. I mean, because I wish the first movie did that a little bit more, but I felt like it might have been a little too much.
Yeah.
But I do like that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it was what you would expect as someone who's what I would consider more of a layperson going to the film.
Yeah.
Visually speaking, it was very engaging. I mean, there was, you know, everything you would come to expect from a James Cameron film, how they build up all this stuff. It just it dragged. I did find it also interesting just to bring in kind of some of the, you know, critical reception, I guess. There was I read an article the other day that talked, you know, they made a big deal about the whale scene, and I'm calling it a whale. It's the toucan,
something like
toucan, which was the species that they clearly had this bond with, the water tribe, and they had this whole drawn out sequence, and it was meant to be an emotionally charged part of the film. It was probably a 20-minute, segment, probably about a little over halfway, 2/3 through the film, where they are simulating a whale hunt, essentially, and making somewhat of a statement, I thought, around hunting whales and wildlife and things like that.
Yeah.
And I just found it ironic because the scene was probably one of the more emotionally gripping if you were emotionally invested in the film. And then it turns out that some of the premiere events and things that James Cameron hosted, he was doing it at a location that had captive wildlife. So it was just very weird to me that you're making this somewhat statement, which is fine. You're a creator, you're an artist, make whatever statement you want. It just was. There were a lot of things that fell flat in this film. But I guess that's kind of our opinion on it. You guys talked about next steps. What is next? What are they building into? Is it another feature film? Is it multiple feature films? Educate me on what this looks like.
Yeah, so the way I see it, there's going to be probably at least another 3 movies.
Confirmed. No, there are 3 more movies.
Yes.
Oh, they are confirmed?
Yeah.
Oh,
the reason why, I mean, Cameron did say that if this movie didn't do as well, he would just drop it to 1.
Okay.
But since this movie has done really well, it's probably like now in like the top 10 top grossing movies of all time now.
I don't know if it's gotten that high yet, but it's on pace.
Yeah, it's definitely on pace for sure. If it's not there already.
Man, that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Those to comment just a little bit on that. We do see that now. The MCU movies are always butting in there. These big blockbusters and specifically Avatar. I mean, it'll end up.
Not to get off topic here. Are they is it box office only? Is it theaters only? Are they, because like I think about MCU, they've launched some stuff streaming. Do they count that? How are they tallying?
Streaming
that?
won't be in what
it's
we're
not
talking
included
about.
in any of that.
No, it's just blockbuster movies.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Okay,
So
basically.
Is Avatar still out right now? Can you
Yeah.
watch it in the
Yeah.
theaters? Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 more confirmed. What is the timeline? I mean, are they? Do we have any?
The
sense?
timeline, I think, is the 3rd movie comes out in 2024.
Okay.
The 4th comes out in 2026.
2028 is the
And then that's the final.
Okay. So he has committed to what'd you say? 10 years since the first one.
So at the end of it all, I looked at it. It's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20 years when it's all.
Is that really how long it's been?
Well, then not between these 2, but when the final
the
one,
entire
the
franchise.
5 films will take them about 15 to 20 years.
And to be fair, I mean, the reason why this movie took so bloody long is literally just because I think, as far as I'm aware, from what I've read and seen on YouTube and all that, I mean, James Cameron was really trying to perfect the technology, the mocap technology, to make sure it could work underwater.
Yeah, it's all about the water.
Yeah,
he was really big on. And again, if that's what you're looking for with this movie, then you're gonna get it, because that stuff is cool. If you come to get a little bit more of the world, Pandora, the characters,
I mean, you do kind of get it. I mean, you do, but
you must really like the first one. I'll tell you
yeah,
that.
exactly, because it literally follows that same formula
With the same characters, same drives.
Yeah.
Well, not same drives.
I mean,
exactly, but very similar.
Yeah, it's very similar for sure. There's no doubt.
I mean, you know, you could tell Jake's son was kind of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
playing. It was part of him that you know was reimagined in a new character, but it followed a very similar thread. I will say, on that motion capture technology, I watched. There was something on social media that scrolled across. I think, is it Zoe Saldana who's the lead?
She's Materi.
Yeah, the lead female. It was a scene with her, and I forget who she was, you know, across from, but it's pretty incredible. It is to give them credit where credit is due. And I know they're not the only film franchise using this technology. Obviously, we see it in the MCU and other things. But it is pretty incredible what they're able to accomplish. When you watch, I mean, she's acting. She's in character. She's got all this shit all over her face, and there's none of the scenery, none of the, you know, and I will give credit to her and everybody that's able to take their mind to that place. I think they sell it as authentic. I mean, you do feel like you are transported to Pandora. You're in that world.
Well, to even comment, just like when you're watching a CGI, even again, we're big MCU guys. We'll talk. You can usually tell where the green screen kind of starts. You can kind of feel it in the scene. You can point to where the line is drawn. On this, you have no idea.
You really can't.
What's practical? What's not real? What's edited? It is one seamless, awesome picture.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I feel like the biggest cultural impact that this movie saga will have is basically the technology.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, the way films are shot will never be the same. Because I mean, I would say most films are going to switch, or at least have some, like, I mean, depending on the film for sure. Like all the sci-fi films, they're going to be all mocap, literally, like probably now onwards. Yeah. I mean, some movies are still going to have like on-site locations as well, just for the sake of like accuracy and whatnot. But for the most part, the biggest cultural impact that these movies will have will basically be the CGI, the mocap, and all that. I mean, the stories, as we have all kind of agreed on, they're not. I mean, I still found it okay, but I would say overall, the stories are not as good as what you would find, again, like with the MCU, or maybe the Dark Knight trilogy, or Terminator, Star Wars. Like,
he's spending this time on this big world, and you feel the world, but I guess for me, just you look at the characters, and I don't have a lot of, I mean, who's your favorite character in Avatar? I would have a tough time coming up with who mine is, which isn't typically a good sign when you're looking at something.
That's fair. I mean, this movie does feel pretty bloated when it comes to, when it comes to characters. I mean, honestly, the oldest son, the Tam, the way I see it, they literally could have cut out his character, and
they just used him as bait, really, to have an emotional scene later in the movie.
I know. Honestly, I think you basically cut him out, cut his death scene out, basically make Lowlock the oldest one.
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, you trim out that, I'd say the movie is at least 1.5 times better.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of things that could have been trimmed out. I mean, I guess that's my biggest frustration in all of it is, you know, as I want to ask this question, and as I'll answer it myself first, but I'm just going to ask you guys, what do you think is next? What are we going to see in 2024 in this third film? And I can't help but think that we're going to see some sort of reprisal of something similar, because you're still dealing with the same, you know, two opposing forces in essence. I mean, you know, this movie expanded the map, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it expanded the map. We introduced new characters. I'm not sure where we really are at as far as developing the original characters because they seem to be in the same quarrel.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what do you guys see, Matt? We'll start with you in the next,
Right.
for the next film.
Yeah. So from what I've heard so far, the third movie is basically kind of be doing the same, at least some similar things to what this movie did, but instead of being at water, it's going to be fire. So basically, we're going to have like a volcanic ash kind, like a volcanic Na'vi people called the Ash People, from what I've read.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be like a different species entirely, or if it's going to be Na'vi. Because I could have sworn I read an article somewhere basically saying it was going to be like, it might be on like a different planet within the same solar system as Pandora.
Okay.
So I think that's it could be a little bit more interesting just to kind of expand the solar system a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think, and I could be wrong, this movie might also have that same Ash People side with the humans instead of like being against them.
Yeah.
And I think I wish James Cameron will do that because I don't know. I guess it would feel a little bit more accurate to what human history really is because you have to keep in mind that throughout American history, really, I mean, you have Native American tribes siding with both the English and the French, as well as even the Spanish at some points as well.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire history of the North American continent, as well as the South American continent. So,
Well, I mean, you
I don't know.
could expand that throughout world history. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
that's
had
also
various
true.
peoples.
yeah, but
you
I'm
know.
just saying, like, it would be nice just to kind of see that. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it would be nice just to see something that's not entirely black and white because we got some humans siding with the Na'vi. It would be nice just to see at least some Na'vi or maybe another species side with the humans.
That could be interesting.
I also do think, I don't know if it's going to be this movie or the next movie or maybe even, or it might be the fifth, but I have heard some rumors that they might go to Earth.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I wish they do it. I really wish they do it. I don't know, because it would be, because you really don't get to see Earth, at least in the first movie.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't. Like, I guess you kind of see it in flashbacks and whatnot, where basically
There's no focus on it.
I mean, there really is.
You don't know what's going on.
At least in the
other
theatrical.
than
Yeah.
resources are just punishing there.
Well, you have to keep in mind that that's true for the theatrical, but like the extended edition, they do show some scenes on Earth. Not much, at least not as much as I would like, but I don't know. I guess, it would be nice to see what is going on Earth and why the humans are so desperate to colonize Pandora. Because, I don't know, I guess one of the things that really kind of helps make the MCU really good, and in this movie saga probably not so good, is that the villains and the heroes are more black and white. Whereas, especially with a lot of like MCU villains, like they are layered,
Yeah.
The villains, i.e. the humans mostly, in this series so far are nowhere near as layered, in my opinion, as they are in other media, in other film franchises, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
Well, some of that's character development. Some of that's the way they've set it up.
Yeah.
I hope, Matt, everything you said, I hope some of it does come to pass because if you take the story to Earth or if you take it to another planet, or as you said, if these, you said Ash People, the volcano tribe or whatever we want to call it, if that dynamic shifts, well, we are going to get we're going to get a step forward, in my opinion, in the storyline. So, Ryan, have you heard anything beyond that?
No, I just to go back to your question, I think we've got about 9 more hours of this just to sit through. Truthfully, I am not excited to see. I expect to see very similar storylines where James Cameron is throwing himself more into the visuals, the next technology, the one-up, and he'll do something crazy with the lava. And if you love that, you're going to keep loving this. But to me, it seems like the story is taking the back seat. Truthfully, to keep going on the MCU, it kind of reminds me a little bit now that I think of Eternals.
I knew you were going to say that.
The visuals in Eternals are awesome. They're maybe the best in the MCU, but the characters.
Too
there's
many
so
characters.
Exactly.
They're underdeveloped.
Yeah.
We had
the
did a
Eternals in
podcast.
this movie.
A
they
basic
do.
villain.
Yep.
Yeah, there's some parallels. And,
I mean, there's absolutely.
and we
parallels.
talked about Eternals on a podcast. I don't know when that was, a year ago, 2 years ago.
That's about right. Yeah.
And I remember saying it was one of our least favorite
Yep.
MCU movies for
Yeah.
that reason. You know, at the end of the day, and you guys have already said it, but I guess I'll reiterate it my own words. If it really is all about the visual effects and the technology and the cutting edge and what's next, great. And I know that there are people that geek out on that stuff in the audience, and good for you. I just, film to me is about telling a story. You find characters that you can fall in love with. You either relate them. Maybe you find characters that you hate, and it makes you want to tune in. Or somewhere in the middle. This is just not one of those. 2 films in, it's very forgettable. I can tell you this: the likelihood that I pull because it's a theater film.
Yeah.
The visual effects, you want to see it in the theater.
Yep.
This is not a movie I'm going to pull up on streaming and tune into. I'll see the next Avatar here in a couple years.
Yep.
That's kind of my thought on it, and I'll see it in theaters, and it'll be really cool. But I hope that maybe it doesn't have to be one or the other. Maybe you can push the boundaries on technology and develop this story and take it to a different place. So, what else? Anything else, guys?
I do have one point I would like to mention.
Okay.
Yeah.
When it comes to the sequels, or movies 3 through 5, I do think there's going to be an interesting plot point coming up.
Okay.
And this plot point, I think that I think is going to happen is, well, actually, there's actually a few points I think are probably going to happen. A, Jake and Neytiri are probably going to die at some point.
Okay.
So, and they just kind of like have the franchise kind of shift more towards the kids. That's one. Another one that I think and I wish would happen is that either A, Neytiri kills Spider, or B, Spider joins the humans.
They're hinting at something with Spider. Because
I mean, the way I came out of it with this movie is, I do feel like I feel like the latter is going to be the most likely. Like Spider's going to join the humans, and then Neytiri is probably going to kill him. That's what I think is going to happen, and I kind of want that to happen.
Because what if Spider kills her?
Ooh, you know what? That's better.
You just said that one of them might die.
Yeah, one of them. That's better.
There you go.
I would. I mean, what are your thoughts?
They've hinted at.
Yeah.
She was not necessarily the biggest fan of his.
Yes.
You could tell that it was kind of almost the Jon Snow of the family. Seriously.
No, it's very good.
For that was how I saw him, and I'll say this: I like Jon Snow's character a lot more than Spider.
Fair enough.
You bring up a good point, though, Matt. I mean, they had this is the interesting thing about where the films stand. Again, I've seen the first one once and the second one once, so I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. But you have a lot of open ends, which are frustrating because you don't feel like there's any sort of clarity as a viewer. But at the same time, the playbook's open. If you want to make something, if you want to make a statement or a pivot or do something drastic, they at this point, if they don't do something significant with Spider, in terms of his allegiance and how, then what's the point? Did he just have a random moment of love for his avatar thoughts of his dad? I mean, it's a stretch.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
it's a stretch. So it'll be interesting. It's a good point, man. I hadn't thought about that too deeply, but all right.
Yep.
We good?
I think we're good.
Yep.
All right. Bring it in for a landing. Night, brothers.
Signing out.